a playlist original.
Alrighty, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Back to the Blockbuster. My name is Gaius Bowling, and since I believe in honesty, this is the second go round that we're having with recording this because there is some internet problems. Actually, this time not caused by the internet itself, but an outside force that knocked something over with the internet. But we are back on. Got my guest back on, and I'm going to introduce him in just a second. But I did want to thank everyone for listening to our 1 year anniversary episode last week, and welcoming Owen back to the podcast as well. He will be back in a limited capacity very soon. We're going to do like a spin-off show of this show starting December 5th, and then we'll be recording that every other week, while this main show will be remain a weekly show, and I'm going to be rotating guests in and out, and then there'll be some regular faces as well. So we're really excited for all the new things that we're going to be doing. We hit a year and was like, you know what? We weren't doing enough work. Let's just spin off the show and do something else too. But it doesn't really feel like work when you're having fun. So that's the best part about it. But in the meantime, this episode is not going to be the usual like kick it off with hot topics kind of thing. This episode is just purely to talk about Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and just because of timing, I couldn't really get our regular people on to talk about it, and some people haven't seen it yet either. But thankfully, our boy Donnie sent someone our way to help me discuss the movie. As you guys know, Donnie has been on several episodes, has helped us out in a pinch when we really needed it, and now he's like recruiting friends and having them help out in a pinch when we really need it. So good for him. I just wanted to introduce that friend right now. His name is Brandon, and yeah, let everyone know a little bit about yourself, buddy.
Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Oh,
My name is Brandon Abeyta. I'm from El Paso, Texas. I'm 27 years old. I've been in filmmaking for I'm gonna say about 15 years now. I started when I was in seventh grade.
nice.
I taught myself Windows Movie Maker and crap like that because my brother and I, it was the big YouTube wave,
Right.
and we wanted to be like these goofballs making these sketch comic videos, and we were really into sketch comedy as kids, SNL,
Right.
Kids in the Hall, The State,
Yeah, for sure.
stuff like that really got us motivated. So we were like, hey, let's be like those guys and make goofy videos, Star Wars videos and stuff. And moved into high school in the ninth grade. I met my best friend Skylar Caprione, and a couple of other buddies, and I and him. We got together and started making short films. It just launched from there. We're like, we're gonna make movies forever.
That's so cool. That's so cool, though.
Yeah, it's like a big best friend brother thing. I'm a big comic book nerd. I grew up reading Marvel and DC and Image and all that jazz.
Yeah.
Like, huge fan, video gamer, just all around nerd, man. My film company that I made with my best friend is called Truman Pictures. So if you guys ever want to check that out, that is us. And we sometimes make a podcast called The Video Vortex, but we haven't gone back to that yet.
Oh wow. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's difficult sometimes when you have like a ton of interests and you kind of want to do them all. So that you like
Oh,
have
yeah.
like you're
Oh, man, yeah.
making short films. You're making short films, and then you want a podcast, and then you want to like
Yeah.
create like YouTube videos, and then like at a certain
Yeah.
point, it's just like it all becomes so much that it's like, all right, I only have time for like maybe one or two of these, and
Yeah.
the other stuff's gonna be like on the back burner until I figure it out.
Yeah. And then life happens and blah, blah, blah. So it's like, well, only one thing
Yeah.
at a time. We're slowly getting back to it now.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're realizing too. We talked about it on our 1 year episode where it's like, for me, I have to do it week to week because it's like a part of like my work. But your friends that join you, like it's fun for them, but like like you said, life happens, and like it's
Oh, yeah.
even though it's only once a week, that can be a rough commitment too, depending on what day you want to do it. And then like all of
Yeah.
it becomes like its own homework assignment. It's like, oh, did you see this movie? Did you hear about this? And like
Yeah.
that's when it becomes like a little less fun,
Yeah.
which is why we're like, which is why we're gonna spin it off, and do something a little separate where it's like we kind of control what we're watching, and like, we
Heck
can
yeah.
talk about like things that we've been watching on our own time, at least, so we're not tied down to like, well, did you go out to the theater and see like the latest new release? So like it can get hard,
Yeah.
especially, we want to have
Definitely.
other stuff going on. So I totally get it, because even I sometimes I'm like, oh, like I know we record on Monday nights or Tuesdays, and sometimes I'm like, can't we just not do it this week? And I'm like, I can't. I just can't do that though.
It's like, it's next week. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and then you like, you end up, and you end up missing out on, like, with a podcast, like if you miss a week, you're like, well, we missed a bunch of news that probably would have gotten us a few bumps and like listeners and downloads. But like, it is weird when you take like a week or two off and you try to get back into it. It feels like you missed like a lot going on.
Yeah, definitely, man.
And then there's always like new things springing up. There's always new podcasts. There's always new people doing YouTube channels. Like everyone is jumping into this. Like when you said like you got into the YouTube stuff, like I wish I would have gotten into that when it was really booming, like really, really booming.
I wish I would have stuck with it.
Yeah,
if I had stuck with it.
Yeah, you might be living a different life right now, man.
Probably
a much different life. And now like everyone kind of like is jumping into it because they can all make money somehow. So like, like Instagram Reels, you can make money like just posting like your videos on your Instagram. And like I think like they said January of next year, like YouTube Shorts, you're gonna be able to like really monetize those now because they want to compete with like TikTok and Instagram Reels. So like like everybody and their mom can like suddenly build like a career out of it if they want to like take the time to like make fun videos. And like I look at it this way, I see like people who are like 12, 11, like real young, just like throwing together TikTok videos and reels, and like they have like a ton of followers and they're doing pretty well. And like if like 12-year-old Amanda can do it, like I know I can do it, right?
Where's my Steam, damn it?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
what am I doing wrong?
I mean, it's
man.
It's definitely a niche I would have like. I mean, I'm glad I'm in it now. I just wish I would have like a wee bit sooner would have like dabbled in all that. But it's cool though. I mean, I think it kind of like it kind of flexes your creativity too, especially like when you want to be a filmmaker, like you're all the things that you kind of set out to create and explore within those avenues. It's fun to get to, especially when you do it with your friends. When you do like this kind of creative stuff with your friends, it's like a really cool experience to like kind of share with them. I'm sure you probably know that doing what you're doing as well. So
awesome. Without a doubt, yeah. And especially now that we're slowly getting back into it. I would say it was more of a hiatus break year this year for us to take a step back and see what we want to do. But it's always so rewarding, once we get into it and you can actually feel the creative juices flowing rather than coming in and be like, well, what do we have to write today? Damn it.
Oh no, right. Exactly.
So it was a bit of a fatigue, I think everybody and people go through it at some point. Yeah, so you just got to balance things out. I don't know how Taika Waititi does it, but
I don't either. I mean, I'm pretty sure too, but like I live in an age here in like LA where like I have like 3 jobs and 2 of them I love, which is like it has to have to do with this stuff. The other one I still like it. I mean, I manage at a restaurant, but it's definitely not like a career or a passion, but it is something to do. It gets you like it gets you out of the house. And like, when the writing job, when we started doing press junkets from like home and like doing them over Zoom and like not going in person, like I kind of thrive that kind of in-person stuff. So like, all 3 of the jobs work really well together, but then sometimes you have weeks where it's like, I am like so fucking overwhelmed you're burnt out. And then it got to the point where like I would like go through my email. I have a separate email for like the restaurant and then like press and then like podcast, Instagram stuff. And at a certain point it was getting all mixed up. Like I was like emailing food people about movie stuff and they were like, what? Like, what? Like, oh yeah, sorry.
Oops.
I fucked that up.
That dude,
but yeah, you mentioned earlier that you also work at Alamo Draft House. What's that like? How is that?
I was going to bring that up again. I'm sorry. It's
Okay.
awesome. I've been with Alamo for about 6 years. I started working as what's the official title is event coordinator, I believe it is,
Okay.
and we're the people who we set up the movie parties and stuff like that, and we get up on stage and talk about the movie a little bit.
Nice.
It's a lot of fun, really cool job, and I fell in love with working with Alamo. I pretty much have done it all on the server now as well.
Nice.
So I see a lot of the inside and outsides of work in movies, I guess, and
Yeah.
it's a nice perk to have that discounted movie prices and whatnot. That's one of the
Big
big
perk.
reasons why I started working for Alamo. It's like, hey, just movies, hell yeah, I'm gonna watch them all the time. It was one of the
Yeah.
big pulls, of course. Really cool place though. Really, they maintain the cinema experience. They no talking, no texting, stuff like that, and then they bring in a lot
Yeah.
of classics and very interactive movie parties. It's a ton of fun.
That's really cool. Yeah. I mean, I kind of wish I had that experience because when I was in high school, I worked at this place called Pacific Beach City Cinema, and it eventually became like the
Uh,
ArcLight. Um, but it wasn't fun like that. It was just like basic,
it's like a
movie
movie theater,
theater.
right?
I guess the only good thing, like you said, there was the got free movies. And I think
Yeah.
when I worked there, it was for myself and three friends that could, or like family
Uh-huh.
or whoever wanted to come with me, and we took advantage of that for a while. Until like I was like one of those things where like I was in high school, and then they made me like at one point I was like a banker there. I was like in charge of all like the money drops and stuff for like
Oh
concessions and
man.
box office, and I was
Yeah.
doing that in high school and having to be there super late,
Ah,
like on a like
screw that.
I would I get home at like and this is and like I'm pretty sure you can't really do this, but they didn't care. I was getting home at like midnight, 12:30 when I was like
Hmm.
16, and like
Hmm.
you know my mom's kind of stance on it was like, hey, you want to work it if you can if you can deal with it, and like you can deal with school. And eventually I was like, no, there's no way I can like get through like
There's no balance. Yeah.
junior year. And like and but it was, I mean, I love movies, so it was fun working in that environment, but I wish I would have worked
Yeah.
at somewhere like at Alamo Draft House. Like we have one in downtown LA,
Yeah.
and
That one looks so damn cool too.
people love it. Like they absolutely love it. You
Hell
know,
yeah.
I think I kind of don't understand why other theaters don't take a cue from them and like have their theaters be more of like a the whole, actually having the whole experience be like
Yeah.
uh something for like, I mean, I guess if you're going to Alamo Draft House, you're going as like a movie fan, like you want that kind of experience. And then like
Yeah.
everyone going to Regal and AMC, or like just casual moviegoers that just want to go to the movies. So I
Right.
guess I could see there being a difference, but I don't know. I think if you had that immersive experience like at all your movie theaters, it would make it a lot more fun
It's
to do
definitely a
it.
really great pool. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's yeah, I think one of the mottos for Alamo is just a movie place for movie love or something like that. And
Yeah.
like you said, it's really is for the true cinema goer.
Yeah.
They want to be there with other people who are having that same experience, and
Exactly.
it's really cool. It's a really
Oh,
unique
that's
type
awesome.
of movie watching experience.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess we can get to a little small independent movie that came out over the weekend, made
Oh
for no money,
yeah.
made for no
Oh
money.
yeah. No, nobody's
Uh,
heard of it.
no one's heard of it. This weekend, we had the release of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and it's, I think, it was one of the highly most anticipated movies of the year,
Mhm.
for a few reasons, because a lot of people liked 2018's Black Panther, and then there was the whole like how they're going to handle the whole narrative
Yeah.
with Chadwick Boseman passing away, and then there was the whole notion of like, well, who's going to take on the mantle of Black Panther? But they kind of like started to give that away in the trailers, like leading up to the movie coming out.
Right.
There was just a lot. There was a lot kind of going coming in for the movie like ahead of its release. And before I asked you anything about the second one, I was talking
Mhm.
to a friend about like the first movie, and what and how much of an experience that was, because it was such a cultural like movement when it came out. Like like people like my mom who have never seen a Marvel movie before saw it
Uh-huh.
because like it was just like it felt important to see it,
Right.
to kind of see predominantly like black cast kind of be
Mhm.
involved in a project like that, when like so many studios would tell them that like you know a movie with a predominantly black cast cannot sell well overseas and won't make money.
Right.
And then to watch this thing make over $1 billion when it came out, you know a little over 700 million here, like in the States
Mhm.
alone. Uh,
Incredible.
to kind of see that happen, and then of course, like surprising everyone. I mean, I don't know, maybe not everyone, but like even getting like award season love, like getting nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars.
Yeah.
Also won a few awards as well, like costume design and stuff like that. Like, it
Mhm.
really kind of, those kind of movies tend to not get that kind of attention. Um,
Right.
I've heard people argue that like they did it because it felt important because it was such a cultural movement, and they didn't want to kind of be left out of like acknowledging that. But even if that is the case, I mean, yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, and I think sometimes it gets lost in a lot of people who like were viewing it just for like entertainment value, like for for a pocket of the audience, it's like, okay, like where is this stand in the MCU? Like where are we heading after this? Like it's that kind of movie for certain people, and then for others, it was just this, it meant so much more to like see themselves on the big screen like that as like
Right.
heroes, and like uh and not just one, like a whole like family of them, a whole cast of
Yeah.
them, uh and then also just like bringing in the culture too, with like the costumes and the music
Hmm.
and like
Beautiful
everything.
colors. Yeah.
Yeah, everything about it became like this much bigger, and like, we are talking about it a little bit with the sequel, but like I even feel like with
Mhm.
that first movie, it feels so not detached in a bad way from the other MCU stuff, but it feels like its own
Hmm.
little beast a little bit,
For
where
sure.
it's like,
For sure.
uh, and it's kudos to director Ryan Coogler, who actually, in my opinion, did something special with this again. And this
Oh
guy, I
yeah.
mean, this guy hasn't even, I mean, I don't even know how old he is. Is he in mid 30s, maybe a little bit? He's
Yeah.
made,
He's rather young. He's a
yeah,
rather
he's only
young
made a
director.
handful of movies, and like none of them have been bad. And
Hmm.
he like, I imagine one, like before it whatever what before what happened with Chadwick Boseman, I think the daunting task was like, how do you follow that up again? Because there were just so
Yeah.
much. It made a lot of money. It got a lot of awards attention. It was this big movement, uh, in cinema and in the industry. Proved a lot of people wrong about like, these kind of movies. You know, Someone mentioned to me like without the success of Black Panther, you wouldn't have probably Viola Davis would have had like a big issue getting The Woman King made or something like that.
Oh
It
yeah.
became like,
Yeah.
you know, but with that success, like their studios are willing to take more chances, and it sucks. I mean, I cover box office a lot for the different sites I've written for, and you know movies that feature like either a black lead or a predominantly black cast, there's always like in the predictions by some of the other sites, there's always like they kind of like lowball it, and then when it makes like more money than they expected, it's always like a surprise. But at a certain point, like it can't be a surprise anymore, because like
Yeah.
certain moviegoers are starving for like seeing themselves on the big screen,
Would-
whether
yeah,
it's
and
a
it's
whether it's a superhero movie
yeah,
or a romantic comedy or like whatever it is. Like I mean, I think it's time that we like people stop being so surprised
for sure, dude.
when they're successful. I don't know
Yeah,
what it will take. I
it's
mean, a movie making $1.3 billion worldwide, it's still like, oh
yeah.
well,
It's like
was
hello.
that was that a fluke, or did that mean something? And like
Yeah,
honestly,
right.
it truly, I think it meant something. But
Definitely.
he would have a daunting task following that up anyway. But then you have to deal with your lead star passing away. And from
Hmm.
what I've read, like there was the movie that we received. The first draft, of course, the script was like way different. I guess he had recently said that he wanted to. I don't know if he had sent Chadwick Boseman the first draft or wanted to, um,
Hmm.
and Chadwick wanted to wait or whatever the case was, and he passed away shortly after that. Um, which kind of drove home to me that a lot of people, I didn't really realize this even reporting it, but like a lot of people didn't really know that he was sick. He kind of kept it to himself. I mean, other
Yeah.
than like his his wife and like immediate
Mhm.
family and friends,
Immediate
I
family
guess.
members. Yeah.
So that's why it came as such a shock, right? I mean,
Yeah. I
I think when you
remember the
saw a video,
day.
yeah, it was a. I remember when you saw
Yeah.
that like
To
last
this
video
day.
that he put out, like and he looks really
Hmm.
skinny, but then we all kind of assumed that like, oh, maybe he lost weight for like a
For
movie
a
role or
role.
like
Yeah.
something like that. And yeah, I just been being completely floored by it. And
Oh yeah. I was shattered, bro. I was shattered.
yeah, and because he seemed like such a really good person,
Hmm.
um, and to know that he found out that he had it when he was doing, so he like Captain America Civil War, he knew as far as back then, and there was just like
Right.
he, I think he had like I think he felt his prospects were good to beat it, which is probably why he didn't tell a ton of people, and that's
Yeah.
fair in his own right. But to like to know that and to see how physically like across those first few movies that he did in the MCU, how
Yeah.
physically in shape he was, and like you would have never guessed that this guy was like sick at all,
Right.
um,
Right.
whatsoever. And what this sequel has to do, it has to do a lot, and in honoring him, and then honoring that character, and then
Yeah.
also having to move things forward a bit for like the greater universe, which I kind of wonder if they were like, hey, that's not as important this time around, because like there's some stuff in the sequel that like, oh hey, I can see where this is going down the line,
Mhm.
but I feel
Mhm.
like compared to other titles, they didn't do it as much where they're setting up like a ton of other things. Like
Yeah.
I feel like they wanted this to be more self-contained. Um, but before getting into specifics, I just want to know like what your when you saw it, like what was your feeling like kind of coming out of the theater after you watched it?
For Wakanda Forever.
Forever, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I loved it, man. Personally, I was very impressed. Like you said, it was a very contained thing of its own. I
right,
see it more as a chapter in the MCU rather than perhaps a Black Panther movie.
right,
Um, because we get a lot of the corners and seeing what they're going through and how the family's handling it. So I think that's really important too for characters in the MCU to be dealing with trauma.
right,
It's just like, well, we just can't pick up the flag or the helmet or the mask or whatever and just fly back into action. It's like, well, now what?
right,
What do now? So I
right,
thought that was a really interesting, take on it. Very realistic,
right.
and it's just a really cool push forward for things to come. It had my mind popping around. It's like, oh, what's going to happen now with this? What's going to happen now
Yep,
with that?
exactly.
I love what the Thunderbolts might be coming, following the
Yeah,
situation. And I think most importantly, the man himself, Tenoch Huerta, really stole the show as name.
yeah, I thought so too. I thought so too. You know what? Since you brought him up, I'll bring it up now because the day before I saw it, I was on Twitter and like looking at what other like journalists who saw it like a day or two early or before me what they thought, and for the
Uh-huh.
most part, the early reactions were very good. But
Mm-hmm.
then I saw some that were like talking about him, like not that he was bad, but they thought he was miscast, and like
Uh-huh.
yeah, and I guess you can get like technical about all that.
Mm-hmm.
If this is like the exact version of the person that you were introduced in the comic books, it may not be
Mm-hmm.
completely, but like I thought
Yeah.
that I thought in the realm of like MCU villains or antagonists, and like and
Yeah.
like what I like too, like in a lesser way, I guess, but like in a similar fashion, he reminded me of like Thanos a bit, where it's not just not just a straight bad guy. Like
Right.
there's
A
reasons
little
for like the
misguided.
things, misguided, but like you kind of like you understand where like this is coming from. Like it's
Yeah,
not
it's
just
like,
like
well, yeah. Yeah.
not
Even Killmonger, I'd say he parallels Killmonger a bit.
yeah, that too.
To a
Yeah,
degree.
yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I thought he stole like most of his scenes, dude. Like he was
Oh, yeah. The
really
second he
really
flew on
good.
screen, I looked over to my best friend Skyler, who he had been watching the Marvel premieres in high school together since,
Yeah,
starting with oh man, going back from the very beginning.
yeah.
We looked at each other and go, oh my god. And I was just like, and then myself too, being a Mexican American, and my mom's the first generation, or she immigrated from Mexico as well, from Chihuahua, Mexico.
Right.
So seeing a really badass, Mexican superhero, supervillain, I was like, whoa, cool.
No, it was
It
really
was,
cool to see
yeah.
like it with like the first movie had that like inclusion as well, but then like with this one, like when I went to go see it, it was packed on Thursday night, and
Yeah.
there was a mix of like what that movie was representing. Like that crowd was that mix, and like you could tell
Uh-huh.
that they were all very happy to see uh
It's
this kind of
thrilling.
unfold, and like major roles too. I mean, this guy is like
Hmm.
so I didn't know much about the actor before I
Yeah.
saw this, and I was
Likewise.
just yeah, I was just amazed by like how much he commanded the screen. Uh,
Yeah.
especially in scenes with like really good people. Like you're like in scenes with like Angela
Oh
Bassett
yeah.
who can like act
Yeah.
circles around like anybody. Um
Oh
and
yeah.
and I thought he was really good at like he was really good in like the kind of quieter moments with Shuri when she's showing her like kind of like his underwater
Hmm.
city and stuff like that. Like so
Oh yeah.
there's compassion in him and you can kind of see that, but then there's this like
Very
intensity in
enduring.
him. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And then there's like this intensity to him as well where like he believes in what he's trying to do and
Yeah.
like and the kind of attitude of like, well, this is what we need from you and like we're telling you what we want you to do, like
Yeah.
you don't have to go through with it, but if you don't this is what's gonna
Yeah.
happen.
It was so classic Namor too, man. Like his I felt that energy. I really think that Noach probably dug into the comics too and read some Namor for sure because he was really mirroring a lot of his energy from the comics right onto the screen, man. I was like, God, this is such a
Right.
Namor thing to do. It's like, oh, like screw you, Namor, but damn it, I hate to love you.
Yeah. And you know
Yeah,
what,
he's so
man?
like,
We always talk about like I think with a lot of these Marvel movies, I think some people are always like, oh, like sometimes the villain can be like the weak link in some of these where the motivations aren't as strong or like
right.
whatever. But he was like top tier for me. He was like really good.
Yeah, yeah,
And uh even in the movie that long, I wanted more of him. I mean, you know, because there's like certain
yeah.
gaps where he's not there. Um,
And I was like, I just want more Namor, damn it.
or yeah, I love yeah, I loved the characterization of like him and what they did with him, and
Hmm.
want to see more from him too. I mean, like that's
Oh
the
yeah,
cool thing about this universe is like
definitely,
there
man.
no one's ever quite done. Even when they, I mean, he in this
Oh
case he didn't
yeah,
die, but even when people die, they're not done. It seems
of
like so.
course,
Like
yeah,
so
yeah.
he's still around. You know, and it seems like by that last line that he gave about like what it meant for her to spare him and like basically like
Mhm.
if they need help they're gonna come to us, that kind of like
Yeah,
they're kind of even like I love when like lines of dialogue just sets up like that little bit of like all right
yeah.
this when
Yeah, it's
something
good
big
tie
when
them.
something big comes we know like what's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's a
Pretty
good turn, I
much.
guess, too, on his character, and I hope we get to see him mess around with the Fantastic Four later, man. I want to see him be a thorn in Reed Richards' side.
Yep, I would love to see that. I would love to see that. and i think and
Those
i think
always my
people
favorite things.
Yeah, and I think people like Kevin Feige know that, like fans know that. Like they're like, all right,
Hmm.
well, these characters connected, so are you gonna connect them? Like,
Oh,
please,
yeah.
please do it for us.
It's like I'm
But
just
yeah,
there rubbing my hands behind the tree, like
yeah, exactly,
more.
exactly more. Yeah. Um, and it's also cool how like the narrative with him and like I don't know like maybe you know more than I do as far as like the initial script for this when they thought they were working with Chadwick Boseman, like
Mhm.
were they doing anything with Namor, or was that kind of like something that came out of like the new direction they had to take when he passed away?
From from what I understand, I think Namor was always going to be part of it. If I'm
Okay,
correct, from what I've heard years ago, I'm not entirely sure how much Chadwick's passing changed all of that,
right.
but I do remember. I think like rumblings of Namor was always were always being talked about. But I don't think anybody really expected it to be in the Black Panther movie. I think they
Movie,
were probably
right.
expecting maybe a Fantastic
For
Four, or even
four,
possibly at the end of the Eternals when
right,
the Celestial dies in the sea. Like, well, maybe it's gonna
right.
mess with uh, with Namor. But yeah, so that was kind of I think a left ball for me too, at least that he
Yeah,
was going to be first showing up in Wakanda Forever.
forever. I mean, it
Hmm.
ended up working out though, based on like
Totally.
yeah, like
Yeah.
because their worlds kind of parallel each other a little bit, and like there's the whole like, and then like using the whole story about the people in Wakanda, and particularly the people like Shuri and that stuff, dealing with their grief over
Right.
losing T'Challa, and like, he had that whole line where where Namor told her like, I heard you say that you like basically want to burn the whole world down,
Burn the world down. Yeah.
and like you're like let's do it together, like that kind of thing, like so the whole like playing on like you know where you can kind of stand in your grief a bit, like it seems
Right.
like. she was in a spot where she wasn't ready to uh properly deal with it at the start of the
Right.
movie, because there's like a finality to it, like, when they were talking about, like, the burning of, like, the funeral robes and stuff, and she didn't want to do that. I mean,
Hmm.
for various reasons, but I think it is that finality of, like, that person is completely gone uh now, once you kind of do that kind of, like, ritual that represents so much. um
Right.
I also thought, like, in discussing on how they handled it, it was crazy to watch it as a viewer and know, like, yeah, they were talking about T'Challa in the movie, but all those lines of dialogue could have easily been about Chadwick Boseman. It could have
Yep.
been like not feeling about, like, how to move on, like if we're ready to do this without him, like that, like everything kind of mirrored like real life. I just imagine that
Hmm.
it wasn't hard for them to get to these places that they need to get to in order to feel this kind of like despondent feeling of like, are we doing the right thing? Like, I hope we're
Uh-huh.
doing the right thing in honor of him. Like that I mean, that seemed to like just be going like, there's the real life, how do we honor Bozeman, and then the movie, like, are we properly honoring like the mantle of like Black Panther and what that represents? And
Right.
it was a really interesting parallel that made the movie a lot. I mean, I had one friend that complained that it kind of lived in that grief too long, but I don't know how you not do
Hmm.
that. Like, it's just
Yeah,
like it is.
I, I've seen a lot of people pointing that out as a criticism that it's too much of a tribute to him, but I don't
Yeah.
see that as a bad thing. Like it's just like, well, and the dude's
Yeah.
gone, and I think it's appropriate. Like
Yeah, it's appropriate.
we,
And honestly, you only get it, you get it
hmm
during the funeral, the beginning. And then there's
hmm
honestly, there's like gaps where, like, of course the characters are like still dealing with it, but it's not like it's the
yeah,
focus, the entire focus of the movie. I mean, I guess it does hang over it, but it's
right,
not like every single moment they're, referencing him or like, doing all that. Like,
yeah,
I think they did a good
yeah.
job of balancing it a bit.
Yeah, I think it was something that very much had to be there. It had to be acknowledged throughout the film. They could have just started with a funeral and be like, okay, next, who's the next Black
Yeah.
Panther? Let's get to it, because
Yeah.
even that would have been like very disrespectful in a sense.
Yeah, I'm glad they actually didn't have that till like what, the climax of the
Yeah.
movie. Like, I mean, that was
Yep.
perfect. It was like,
Oh yeah.
um,
It was great.
my one buddy said it felt like, he wasn't mad about it because he still thought it was cool.
Uh-huh.
He did say it
Yeah.
felt like it was tacked on like as an afterthought, where it's like, oh well, we got to do this now. We have to like pass the torch, basically. Um,
Hmm.
but I still thought they built up to it well. I mean, not they like
Yeah.
it made sense for her to be the one to do it. I mean, I've seen some complaints on, not a lot of complaints, but some complaints on Twitter about it being her. But I don't know who else you would. I mean, it makes sense for it to be her. Um, and then I do like, though, that even though the whole movie wasn't just about like, is she gonna take this on? Like, the running theme is about like her needing to get to a point where she needs to step it up, basically. And whether that means like taking on like the physical, like, wearing the costume and doing all that. Yeah, there's that, but she
Yeah.
had to like also be in the mindset to take that
Yes.
on. So like you had
Yes.
to watch her go through all that, like,
Yeah.
that battling with her grief, and then like trying to accept it, and and then finally she gets to where she needs to in the climax, where it's like she needs to take it on. And it's interesting
Hmm.
too, because like even when she gets there, because she has that whole vision with Killmonger, right? So
Hmm.
it's like,
Hmm.
what direction is she gonna take?
Yeah.
Like, where he's like basically telling her like, you can't be noble like your brother, because that doesn't really get you anywhere. And like, and she doesn't want to be like him, but like, sometimes vengeance feels good. And like you could tell, like,
Hmm.
in her initial fight with Namor, that's what she wanted. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's cool that like you don't even like see what, I mean, until she makes that ultimate choice, like what direction she is gonna take. I mean, you can make the assumption based on like how these movies go, like she's gonna make the right choice. But I'm glad they didn't like kind of telegraph it until like she does make the
Yeah.
choice. Like, it
No, it
wasn't
was
like,
it, it was yeah. I really liked how she worked the pathway into being the Black Panther. It
right,
was perfect. Yeah,
exactly.
it was a good emotional journey that we needed to see.
Yeah, I think so too. I also, I mean, you kind of talked about it a little bit, but you think overall, I know people have talked about like, should they have recast him? Should they have done that?
Uh-huh.
Do you think the choice they made, like how they honored him, do they think they did the kind of the best they could do, and like Uh,
Yeah, it's such a difficult thing to like think about, because like Chadwick was so special. He was so lovable. He was so uh impactful,
right.
and having him here and then gone so fast, I think it's hard to be like, well, who's gonna be able to do this, and
Yeah.
can we do it? Should we recast? Frankly, I think the way they did it was good. It was a good way to handle it in the real life, and Chadwick's
Yeah.
passing, and then a good way to take a step forward in the MCU, introduce a lot of really cool stuff, in the best, most tasteful way possible. I think I also coming back around to it. I think Riri Williams was also really cool.
Yeah, she
I
was.
had
I
low expectations.
I kind of didn't know what I was gonna think, and I thought that even though it's a 2 hour and 45 minute movie, I thought she was gonna feel like shoehorned in a bit, so they can like
Right,
introduce
right.
so they can just introduce her and be like, oh, like, well, she's gonna show up
Yeah.
like in something later. But I thought they did a good job
Uh-huh.
of like bringing her in, and then also like having her have respect for Wakanda and like kind of wanting to like help out there, and
Uh-huh.
like I thought that was really cool how they used her. Like it made it feel like it wasn't forced and how they
Yeah,
utilized her. Um, and she was really good. I mean, that movie needed some levity, and like she was,
definitely.
she was proper comic relief without it being like overbearing. I think.
Yeah.
Um,
No, it was really cool. And I have her first issue came out, I think, what, 6, 7 years ago.
was a go. Yeah,
So she's like a fresh character. Her and Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan.
yeah,
So that's why I was like, well, the MCU is really jumping on these new characters. How are they going to do it with them just being so fresh and having nothing but old characters around?
yeah,
I think both of them have been introduced very properly, and it's a great step forward again, for all kinds, for a wider audience too.
yeah. It really is. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
now you have like young girls their age that are like seeing,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're seeing that. Um, I know there's been some like hesitation about like, okay, well, like moving forward with like the MCU and you're setting up like, these two big Avengers movies I'm assuming are gonna be big, you know, like who's your team now, right? Because like so many of the
Mm-hmm.
people that you've loved or won't be there anymore, like Chris Evans, Captain America won't be there, no more Iron Man.
Right.
Uh, I'm assuming we'll still have Thor because Chris Hemsworth says he will play the character until he until he can't anymore, I guess. But like I've Jack, who's like on our show as well, was
Mhm.
always like concerned about like building like the Avengers around these like newer people who a lot of
Right.
people aren't a lot of people aren't familiar with. So he was
Yeah.
like, so who's the team? And like it's like I think they've gotten. It's just my opinion. I think they gotten to the point where they are so confident in their storytelling and what they're doing that
Hmm.
they kind of feel like the audience will accept these newer
Definitely.
characters.
Yeah.
Eh,
That's my brother and I touch on that sometimes too. It's like, well, they've made so much money. They've made so much money back already. They have enough money to make projects for this audience and for that
Yeah.
audience. And, so that's why I think some of the toxic fans, they get carried away with it all sometimes, thinking that everything has to fit
Yes.
their idea of what it should be. And
Right.
I always call back to the comics and growing up being a Marvel boy, because that's
Yeah.
why I was mostly a Marvel boy. The
I
Dynamite
was
comics
I
too.
I was too. I was a Marvel guy. I tried DC. I mean, I used to like some of the Batman stuff.
Uh-huh.
But like the stories in Marvel were always more interesting to me. I always like gravitated towards
Yeah,
Spider-Man and X-Men.
yeah.
So like
I was
I thought
always an X-Men boy.
yeah. And honestly, like all I mean, to me, Marvel and like and anyone can like message me and let me know like things I should read in DC. But and I'm
Oh
sure that
yeah,
DC does mirror the real world a lot. But I feel like I
DC's got
was
some great stuff for sure.
yeah. But I feel like I would see in Marvel like there were just so many things that they were doing that really
More
mirrored real
hooking
life.
all the time.
And
Yeah,
yeah, where it's like, oh, these aren't. It's not just about a team of superheroes or like this person
right.
with like superhuman abilities. Like they're trying to tell like a real human story mixed in
Hmm.
here as well. So I always like
Yeah,
gravitated towards that a lot. So yeah, I agree with you. I was a Marvel boy, like
hell yeah,
through,
dude.
through and through, growing up. But
Yeah, so
yeah,
that's how I was raised and introduced to comics, was Marvel. So
yeah, but yeah, but also yeah, I don't want to like sell the newer people short because like they're like, oh, like what they're
yeah,
gonna use like Haley Steinfeld and like all this. I mean, yeah, but like, and what's funny is that you
She was
introduce people.
she was awesome too.
And
She was hot
she was
shot.
great. She was
I
great. So
loved
it's like
her.
you're not bagging on her because she wasn't great. You're bagging on her because like, are you
It
talking
doesn't
about
fit
her
your
like
vision.
her lack of star power? I mean, because like he's
Right.
like you want a Robbie like Ray. There was a time
I
when like
know. It's like, come on. Like
there was a time when like those guys were new. Chris Hemsworth was new.
right.
Like
Yeah.
Chris Evans wasn't like quite new, but like he wasn't like on the level that he was once he
Yeah.
joined the MCU. So it's
I
like,
remember when, yeah, when Hemsworth was cast as Thor, I was like, I don't know who he is, but he looks like Thor. I'm gonna give him a chance. Fuck it.
yeah.
Sorry,
And
I'm not sure if I could
yo,
cuss or not.
no, you can't. And then like I remember, I mean, I remember Robert Downey Jr. was like, all right, you guys are taking a big gamble on like someone who's like had a rough life, but at that point
Oh yeah,
he had cleaned up. So like, there's like
cleaned
a
up.
lot. It's a lot of stuff that like I think it's funny
Yeah,
when people try to call things out now, and it's like, yeah, you know, like a few years ago, like these things were new too, and
right. Yeah,
like you
everybody
weren't
thinks
really
that the
like,
dropping round, like the big phase ended, and everybody thought that Thunder was going to keep rolling. It's like, well, no, we're turning the page into a new era. We have to introduce new characters and events.
yeah, like how
So
familiar were how familiar was the audience with Elizabeth Olsen before she was cast as Wanda,
yeah,
and
yeah.
now there's an argument to be made by some of those same people that she might be one of their favorite characters, like in the
Hmm.
MCU now. So it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
like once upon a time, like yeah, we were like, who's that girl? What's up with the
it's
accent? Drop it, drop it,
it's such a weird polarizing effect
audience.
that time has on the audience. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
bizarro, dude.
It's
Because
so weird.
yeah, even coming back to comics, as a kid, if everybody, oh, look at this nerd reading comic books in middle school, and it's stuff like that, and now it's
Yeah,
like everybody loves it. It's like, oh, cool.
yeah. Now it's like,
So
oh,
it's really interesting.
you can see the movies, but I guess you
Now
can't read them.
yeah, now people are arguing about what they what they want from these comic book movies. Now it's hilarious. It's like,
Yeah,
10 years ago you would have been called a nerd for talking about this, and now we're arguing about who's better, who's not, or whatever. It's just insane how polarizing this whole everything
yeah.
has been.
How it all is. It's crazy. Um, getting back to the movie a little bit too. I thought it was interesting
Yeah,
because the movie
sorry to
was.
get off track.
Oh no, no. Well, we have this all the time, and it's actually sometimes the best part of the show. We are for a movie as long as it is, there weren't. I mean, there's a lot of spectacle, but there aren't a ton of like action scenes. Like in the movie,
Yeah,
it's more like story driven, and I it's not something I pay much attention to though because the narrative was so interesting that I wasn't like,
right.
oh, how long has it been since our last like action sequence? But I will say that the ones that we did get were pretty well done.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I thought like yeah, like all of them from like start to finish, I thought were like really really good. And the climax was I thought was amazing as well. Um,
Mhm.
just like very well choreographed and like
Yeah, Coogler
really well
hit it
done.
out of the park again with the timing, the design, the weapons,
Yeah,
uh, Namor and the villains looking unique. Like
and
it was really cool. We
dude,
had different weapons and style and stuff.
they were kind of scary, man. I mean, I'm not like I was afraid of them, but like
Yeah,
the way they presented them, like when they first attacked that ship, and like
yeah. It's like,
they were making people like walk
oh,
off,
it
like
was
they
cool. It was
like they
creepy, man.
they were like so that was so
Shadow
well done.
assassins, man.
Yeah, it was
Yeah, it was
so
so
well done.
cool, man. Oh
Yeah,
man, it
I
just talking about it still, it gives me goosebumps with how badass
yeah
they were.
yeah they were so cool, and like and of course you
Mhm.
want everyone from Wakanda to win, but there was like certain times where they were just fighting, and I was like, damn, like they
Yeah,
can hold their own.
and
They're holding their own.
yeah, like you say too, like with the action sequences, it just proves that this one isn't. I always rag on Martin Scorsese when he talks crap about Marvel movies or anything like that.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
it's just like, well, dude, have you actually sat down and watched them and understand what they are?
yeah.
And the I guess too, like, I keep coming back to comic books. It's the little kid in me that's still happy to see something that I read on page come to life
Like on
so
the big screen, like yeah,
fantastically, so
yeah,
fascinating. We were there when we saw the cheesy Fantastic Four movies and stuff like that in the early 2000s. to
Yeah.
see this come to life on such a grandeur scale, it's so rewarding. And my dad loves it too. He just turned 69, so he's like, it's so cool to see that stuff happen. I read about it. I
Yeah.
thought it would never happen. But
So it's so funny
it's
you bringing
special
up
on.
that 2005 Fantastic Four movie because I always reference this because like when they released the new one with like Miles Teller and Michael B. Jordan,
Oh,
I remember
fantastic.
yeah, I remember turning to my friend and being like, "Oh, aren't you happy you got that 2005 movie now?" Because it looks like a fucking masterpiece in comparison.
Oh, dude, yeah, it really made me grateful for Silver Surfer, man.
Even Silver Surfer, which is like awful too, but like I was like, yeah,
I know.
at least it's better than this.
Galactus the Cloud.
But you know what? I love that
Yeah.
some of them got their own. They got their MCU like do overs. Like Chris Evans got it with Captain America after playing
Yeah.
Human Torch, and then Michael B. Jordan got it playing Killmonger after also
Mhm.
playing Human Torch, which is so that role must be like a curse for some of them.
Oh man, I would always like to play the Human Torch, but I'm afraid that it would be cursed.
Yeah, probably. They're like, yeah, you
Yeah.
can't, yeah, that role. But you know, maybe not so much. Maybe it leads to bigger things as we've seen.
Yeah,
With
it's
those
true,
people,
huh?
it's really yeah. Um, yeah, I know. I always have to reference that because my buddy hates the 2005 movie. I was like, well, I mean, do you really hate
Oh
it now
yeah.
after you saw Fantastic? Because that's pretty awful. Like Jessica Alba's acting circles around
Oh
the Arctic.
man.
Poor
Oh, it's
thing.
such a goofy movie, bro. Oh god.
Yeah, it is. It is. Oh man. No, it makes me
I'm
makes
so
me appreciate
yeah.
what we have now. I mean, like what we have
I
now,
know
like
it's like,
like
and it's beautiful. Like we have such beautiful stuff. Coming back to the movie, I guess.
yeah,
I think Black Panther. My favorite. I think MCU movies right now are probably the Black Panther ones. Guardians, of course. I am a James Gunn boy through and throughout.
yeah.
Since I was a wee little lad watching, Slither and stuff.
Slither, yeah, Slither's great.
Uh,
You probably shouldn't have
and I
been
think what they
watching.
do, yeah, I probably should have been watching Slither fourth grade, but fuck it.
That's hilarious.
So it's just really cool that it's not more than just action scenes and stuff like that. Granted, we
Yeah,
get it, and it's fucking badass when we do. It's
yeah,
great that these directors like Coogler and Gunn are able to really corner the emotional aspects of it all and tell us a real story, and we feel
yeah,
that we feel
yeah.
it. It
I
makes me
agree. I
cry.
agree. I mean, like, and like, I was reading like a lot of the actors and stuff. Like
Mhm.
Letitia Wright posted like some stuff from like the first Black Panther. I think it was like a photo shoot with like her and like
Uh,
Lupita Nyong'o and Chadwick Boseman. And I forgot what the caption said exactly, but it was basically like, congratulating the movie opening and said that this was made out of love, it was made for love, and now this is yours now, basically saying this is the fans now. I hope it like
yeah,
I hope it takes care of you the way that it took care of us while we were making it. And I thought that was like a really just
definitely.
like poignant thing to say because like I'm sure there were moments where it was fun making the movie and there was moments of like levity and then there's probably moments of like
Mhm.
can we do this? Are we going to be able to do this?
Oh, dude,
And then
yeah,
look
I
and then
couldn't
just looking
imagine,
back
man.
and then looking back on like stuff while they were making it, I I'm sure it was a hard shoot.
Oh,
And I know Letitia
oh
Wright
yeah.
went through a lot making that movie because I know she got hurt while
Uh,
filming and then she had
oof.
to deal with like the whole outside like Twitter media stuff when it came to like the vaccinations and things like that. And like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
a producer on the movie said that she was treated really unfairly when it came to that, and she was kind of called out a lot. And like and also kind of taking on this like I'm imagining that Ryan Coogler and maybe like Feige like producers and stuff sat down with her like this is what we want to do with
Yeah,
you with your character and
yeah.
like how do you feel about that? And I'm sure there was I
Some
don't know
big
if she
shoes to fill.
big
Yeah,
shoes to
man.
fill, but I'm sure she was like, we're
Yep.
doing it for him. So like we might,
Hmm.
I think that ultimately won out, and I think that's why her arc in this movie is so good because I don't feel like she's acting it. I feel like she was living it. That was
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
her real life
Oh yeah.
playing out on the big screen. Like it really was
Watching it
like
a lot too. I've really felt it, bro. Hmm.
yeah, you're taking
Yeah,
on
you.
like not the
Oh,
mantle of just this character like in the movie, but like you're becoming the lead of this
right.
bigger thing now. And like
Yeah.
and that wasn't the intention, right? You were your little sister, like supporting character, like a little bit
Hmm.
of comic relief, like she was in the first movie. Like,
Yeah.
they kind of did that with Riri Williams in this one. I think they kind of like did that with
Uh-huh.
her, and
Right.
because they weren't exactly going to be able to do that with Shuri, even though they did give her moments where she was kind of funny,
Yeah.
especially when they went to go retrieve
See,
her from her
this is
dorm.
another. Oh, yeah, that's what was so great about it too. That DC could take notes from. I'm sure they will now that James Gunn's going to be handling it a
Yeah,
lot. Um, is that despite the obvious, the elephant in the room,
right,
Chadwick's gone, Black Panther's gone. They didn't have this dark, broody tone the whole damn time. They were able to keep it up with light humor and realistically, it's like
right. And
it's
use the right character. Yeah,
I
use the right characters for it too. Like they were really like
right.
the Winston Duke is fucking amazing. He's hilarious,
Yeah.
and
And even
I
like
had
as a
no
big
idea
brother character,
he was good in that capacity
uh
as well. But he's also really
perfect. Yeah.
I also found out that he improvised that like bald headed demon line when he was like talking about her.
Oh, that was hilarious.
That was hilarious. So there were definitely moments
That
of
was a
like
great line, man.
levity, and I like what they did with her about like her not really like kind of seeing that she didn't stand out when they went to like uh to go get Riri Williams from college, and like she was
Mhm.
like, well, basically Shuri was
Oh
like, well,
yeah.
I look like a student, like I can fit in,
Yeah.
like you even though you're wearing like a pantsuit, you still look like a
uh,
warrior.
oh
like
yeah, it was hilarious. Yeah,
like
I love the whole interaction between the three of them in the dorm was just
was so
perfect, bro.
funny.
It
It
was
was really
chef's
really
kiss.
funny. Yeah,
The
it
whole
was. I was
audience, the entire room. I was in.
love that they
It was a
love that
packed
whole
night
thing.
at Draft House. Yeah, loved it.
They
Loved it.
um I was Angela Bassett. There's a lot of like a ton of like people that really want her to get nominated for an Oscar for this, and I don't think it's going to happen just because of the type of movie it is. Um, but she was, and I know we got a lot of that speech in the trailer, but to watch her give that speech about like basically how everything's been taken away from her, like she's lost her whole family, and like when she she's yelling at her, and like that was so powerful and just so like
Yeah.
Angela Bassett could read the phone book probably and like be good.
At the least, I hope she scores the nomination. At the
I
least,
hope so too, because
I
like I kind of feel like
yeah,
the supporting actress like field. I think there are some contenders, but I think there's an opportunity for her to sneak in. Like I don't think she would
for
win,
sure.
but like I think there's an opportunity for her to sneak in and then just submit that
Yeah,
scene as your scene when people
definitely,
are
man.
like,
I was my tears were running, dude. Like I felt her pain every time she felt hers, man. I was like, damn,
yeah, she
there
was
she
like,
goes.
yeah,
There goes Angela Bassett again. Damn.
yeah. And you think they're like what's crazy about that scene is that you think they're gonna turn it around where it's gonna be like, hey, because they're basically like, like she stood up against her husband for us and like all this other thing. They were like, hey, she kind of proved herself, and I thought that was gonna turn the tide and like, you know what, you're right, let's help find her together, let's like find Sherry together, and that just made her more upset. Just like like look
Hmm.
what I've gone through, like, and what I've had to
Oh,
deal with, and like all that
so
loss, and
good.
like I thought that was so I got like goosebumps when I was watching it. Like she, and like,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
honestly, some of her quieter scenes were really like that too. I loved when
Hmm.
like, her first scene when she was addressing them about they were talking about the vibranium and like basically
Yeah, at the UN.
yeah at the UN, and they were cutting between
Yeah,
the scenes of like
yeah.
them trying to take it, and her speech
That was so cool.
like her
Yeah.
speech like overall that was just really good. Um,
Uh-huh.
and like it's crazy. I think just because of her position as queen, like even though she was going through as much grief as like the rest of them, she kind of felt like she had to step up because you know she had to rule. Like there was no other thing that could be done. Like this was like the position she had to take, and so she
Uh-huh.
had to be strong, even if she maybe felt like the odds were like stacked against her. And I thought that was good that throughout until you get to the scene where she kind of breaks and is like, hey, like I've gone through so
Yeah.
much. I thought she did a good job of like being like head
Yeah.
held high, like doing the best she can to
Just
like
being the queen. Yeah.
yeah, and then also trying to be protective of Shuri without being overbearing. You can tell that like she's like
Right.
like this is what all I have
Yeah.
left, that kind of thing, and I don't want anything to happen to
Hmm.
her, but I also like
Hmm.
know that she's in her own headspace when it comes to this stuff. I just thought that's like stuff you don't really get in like superhero movies. Like I won't just say Marvel movies. I'll just say like comic book movies in general, like talking
Yeah,
about that kind of like the nuances of life and grief, and
right.
an acceptance of that, and then like kind of rebirth from that. Like it's like you don't get that, and I think that's what,
Yeah.
like you made that comment about Martin Scorsese. This extends to like
Hmm.
people like James Cameron, who recently said things about
Hmm.
Marvel and DC.
All the
Oddly enough,
grumpy old dudes.
oddly enough, he said it right in front of Zoe Saldana, who has been in several Marvel movies. He said
No
it right.
kidding. That's my
So
thing
like,
too. It's just like all these actors that they use for their movies are all Marvel stars.
yeah,
Like,
I was dying. I want to say Vanity Fair, but it could be Variety. They
uh-huh.
put it in print, but they actually did it also on video. Um, and he's talking about like the characters in Avatar: The Way of the Water, and like how he wanted them to have nuance, and depth, and like how like
Right.
emotion, like they'll be more emotionally gratifying. And he kind of threw in a lob at like, well, it's I don't really see that in a lot of big budget movies. And he was like, and I'm looking at you, Marvel and DC,
Oh,
and like,
oh, come
but
on,
I'm
buddy.
dying though, because I'm absolutely dying because Zoe Saldana is sitting right there, and she
Just
at this point
looking
has been
like,
like, and she, I think at this point she's been like five or six, like a handful of them, and
yeah.
I'm just wondering in her head, because she didn't really give like a oh, what the fuck are you talking about, but like in her head
Hmm.
she must have been like, maybe he forgot I'm like in a few of these myself. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we talk about all those directors that kind of bag on these things like that. That's what makes me think that a lot of them haven't really watched some of them.
Yeah.
They're just going based on like, like, oh, well, I see in a trailer or in a preview. Like I don't really think they've actually taken the time to watch some of the better
Hmm.
ones, I guess, and because they would actually see there is a lot more going on there
Hmm.
than
Yeah,
spectacle.
and what's cool too about particularly I guess Wakanda Forever is that I don't think you necessarily need to be up to speed with all the MCU to
No, you
even
didn't. It was pretty self-contained,
yeah,
right? I think
yeah.
of course my mom has only seen two Marvel movies now. It's this
Hmm.
one and Black Panther. So like
Yeah.
she was a little lost on like the Ross, like Martin Freeman, Julie Louis-Dreyfus stuff. So you had to
Right.
like fill her in on what that was.
Hmm.
I actually had some friends that felt that was tacked on, but I really didn't think so. I thought it was just enough where it was like, all right, well, I know what you're trying to do and like what you're setting
Yeah.
up.
It makes
Um,
sense to me for them to be there. It's like,
yeah,
because it's just, sometimes with these fans, damned if you do and damned if you
damned
don't.
if you
It's
don't.
like
Yeah,
yeah, you can't say anything, and if you don't say anything, people are gonna be like, "Well, what's going on with these people? Where are
yeah.
they?"
It's
It's
like,
like,
well, like you have to like, where would you logically bring them back, right? Because like the thing is, like
right,
the movie sets up the whole like Wakanda is its own little nation, like that's also dealing with us. So it makes sense that those kind of characters, like Martin Freeman's character and Julie Driver's character, would be there because they work for
right,
these organizations that like
yeah,
are dealing with this kind of stuff. So it makes sense.
mhm.
Like it's like, okay, well, you're not gonna like throw her into like, I'm not saying that we're getting another one right away, but you're not gonna throw her into Spider-Man or
Right,
something like that. Like it has to make sense, or
yeah,
like
yeah.
like
It's
lob her up into like Eternals. Like it has to make sense.
right,
So like I thought it did make sense, and like, and I've definitely seen projects where characters feel like they're forced in, and I didn't really get that
yeah, yeah.
in
For me,
at
the
all.
weirdest cameo I think was Blade at the end of Eternals,
But also,
and I
yeah, when it was like,
didn't
oh,
even know it was Blade until I went home. I was like, "Who the hell was that?" It was Marshall
exactly.
Ali. Well,
I didn't know
wait.
that either. I like went online and they were like, oh,
Yeah,
who was it in that end scene? I was like, what, really? Well,
yeah.
good
Like
good job,
I
because you fooled.
initially thought it was Nick Fury. I was like, well, was it Nick
Yeah,
Fury? Because it kind of
like
sounded like
whoops.
him, but no. So
Yeah,
I
exactly.
hope they figure that out too, because I really want to see Blade and Black Knight and the Midnight
Yeah,
Suns, man.
I do
Damn
too. I hope. I mean,
it.
you know what? The good thing about Marvel is that compared to DC, and I'm not someone that like shits on DC because I actually want the best for like. There's some good
Me
stories that can be
too.
told there. I actually, I actually, I actually,
Definitely.
I actually liked Black Adam like for what it was. I can
I
understand.
haven't seen Black Adam yet.
Yeah,
I
I can
have to
understand
go
why
do
critics.
that.
I can understand why critics didn't love it, but like it was
Yeah.
still entertaining and it was fun, and it seems like they're trying to right that ship now with like of course
Yeah. I
picking new
think
heads
they're
in
on the right
DC, but like
path.
yeah,
Um,
it takes a while to like fix a shit show,
yeah,
and there was
for sure.
there was a definite shit show. But the good thing I think about Marvel is that I think they take their time. Like they could have easily
Mhm.
rushed and found a new director for Blade, and like, no, we got
Yeah.
to keep that we got to keep that release date. But they're like, no, they just
Mhm.
shuffled that release date and then shuffled the rest of their release dates because that's what you do when it's like you don't rush it. You like
And
make
things
sure,
work out,
yeah,
So I'm just like when Guardians went down. I'm glad that they didn't rush and find another director for three.
yeah. I'm
Because
glad. I'm glad
it
they
just
kind
went
of
into the
realized
same.
the error of their ways. Like,
Oh
like,
yeah.
hey, yeah, he
Oh
said this. He said this a long time ago. I'm not saying that it's right, but like, I also saying that he's grown up since what
oh
is it
yeah.
2005, 2005,
Oh
whenever
yeah.
those
Like
things came out.
I
I
always
was
give people the
like,
benefit of the doubt. It's just
yeah,
like if you screwed up and you make amends for it,
dude,
depending on the
it's
screw up, of course.
right, right. And then talk about a situation that like
Yeah.
really worked out because he ended up being able to come back and do the third one. Then he gets to
Yeah.
do the Suicide Squad, and then he gets to do
Yeah.
Peacemaker, and now he's like running
And now he
DC
saves the DC universe.
universe. So it's funny
I
how
bet
that,
you Marvel's like shit. Fuck, we should have probably never have done
yeah. And
that.
I do think Kevin Feige's a nice man though. He did say he wishes him the best, and like, uh,
Oh yeah.
yeah, but it would be funny if there's
Oh,
like
the way
sequel.
I see it, man, shit. I feel like it's inevitable that someday down the road we'll maybe be old men and we'll see a Marvel versus DC.
Yeah, I mean, they asked Dwayne Johnson that. I mean, of course, he's
Oh
like
my
that's something.
god.
He's like, of course, that's something that'd be like way down the line. But he was like, I would like to see something like that happen. And like,
I would love to see it.
he says he has a lot of respect for Marvel. I mean, like, I mean, in discussing the box office, like the sequel Wakanda Forever opened to like 181.4 million over the
Mhm.
weekend, and like some will say that's down from the 202 million opened to, and the first one opened at 2018. But it's
I mean, there's a
also,
lot of
like
reasons to
there's a
take
lot of
in.
reasons. There's
Mhm.
the whole first movie was a huge cultural movement, right? There was like a lot of
Mhm.
people going to see it. Different release date, like it's a different time of year, like
Yeah.
February compared to November. We also have a much longer movie in play here at 2 hours and 45
Yeah.
minutes.
Post
um
COVID world.
a post-COVID world, even though like it seems
Mhm.
like people are willing to go to the movies, like it's still not
Yeah.
completely back to what it was. So like,
Right.
yeah, there's nothing. An $181 million opening is nothing to sneeze at,
Yeah.
and the fact that it opened to like 331 million globally in this opening weekend, it's within Black Adam's worldwide gross in like its first week. It'll probably take
Oh
over.
yeah.
It'll take over Black Adam probably next week. Um,
Mhm.
and no, Dwayne Johnson actually congratulated Marvel and the movie on that, which is like a classy thing to do.
Yeah.
Because like for whatever
He's
people,
such a cool guy. He's such a chill
yeah,
dude. I want to
yeah,
give him a hug someday, man.
because like for whatever people say about like especially this current phase of Marvel, because I think this phase four got a lot of criticism. Um,
Way too much. Way too
oh,
much
hey,
than
hey,
I
much,
think it
yeah.
deserves. I think someday people are going to look back on it and say, "Hey, that wasn't that bad."
Yeah, I think so too. Because
Because
I think what happened with the other phases that it was like, okay, it feels like they're connecting it to this greater story that's building up to like
yeah.
what we get to with like Avengers Infinity
Mhm.
War and Avengers Endgame, right? But
Mhm.
like no one said the storytelling had to be the same after that.
Right. Yeah,
Like
and I don't know who expected it to be like.
right, right. So now
And
you
then
have like,
it's
yeah, you have like more stories that
yeah,
are a little bit more self-contained, and like yeah,
right.
there's hints to like what's to come, but like who said you needed the big
You
hints right
know,
away? Like just be patient.
everything has its own flavor and genre now. It's
Yeah,
like the comics. Like even when I was a kid, I didn't read every fucking character. I had my Ghost Rider, I had my Avengers, I had my
yeah,
mostly X Men. I was more of an X Men dude than I was an Avengers dude. I
yep,
was more of a street level hero. Punisher. I read a lot of Punisher and the Defenders.
yep.
So it's just
Um,
like, well, watch what you want to watch, get your flavor and pick it.
yeah, exactly. And like, even something like, so when I saw Eternals, I didn't love it,
Mhm.
but then I watched
Right.
it when I watched it when it got to Disney Plus, and
Uh-huh.
didn't dislike it as much as when I saw it in the theater. I think I was expecting something different, and
Yeah,
then now
the
that I've
same
settled
thing for me. Yeah.
now that I've settled in on what it is, I was like, all right, I guess it wasn't all that bad. It was still too
Yeah,
long,
it was fine.
but
Too
it was
long.
fine. But like, I actually like I know people were mixed on the Doctor Strange sequel. I thought that was really well done.
I thought it was
Uh,
really well done, and I, for one, absolutely adored Love and Thunder.
so like I'm on the fence with that one. So like we talked about that
Yeah,
when the movie came out, and like I
right.
I thought it was like too okay. So I love Ragnarok. I thought like taking it in
Yeah.
a more humorous direction was the right way. But then, like
Mhm.
I think I said on the podcast, I was like, I think Thor: Love and Thunder
Mhm.
like Ragnarok's way too hard. It tried to like be like really
Yeah,
really funny. So like and then it kind of makes the character seem not as like he loses a little bit of like he almost made him like kind of dumb a little
yeah,
bit in
a
moments.
little doofy.
Like
Yeah,
my favorite depiction of him so far is probably in Infinity War. I think that was like a nice balance of like
for sure.
the
Yeah,
humor, but
man.
also having a little bit more of a like a badass like gravitas a little bit,
Hmm.
and like
Hmm.
and he kind of lost that in Love and Thunder. I didn't hate it. I still like thought it was entertaining. There was things I liked about it.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool that Natalie Portman had more to do and like
Oh
all that
yeah.
stuff was really fun. Um, and Christian Bale, like we make this joke that Christian Bale was like acting in a much better movie than the one he was in, but still really good in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think when it comes to this
Um.
current phase though, like
Uh-huh.
after this movie, I I'm giving this one the top ever so slightly. Like I love Spider-Man No Way Home, but I know that there's not as much like though there was emotional weight in it, but like there was also a lot of fan
Mhm.
service and stuff that was cool,
Oh
which
yeah.
is why a lot of people
Yeah.
liked it. Um, but I also think in its own way, it had its own emotional like core too. Like when he has to like basically accept like
Yeah.
they have to forget about you in order for this to like in order to stop this, you have to
Hmm.
we have to wipe everyone's memory of you, and that that
Yeah.
last scene where he goes to go visit her at the place that she's working, and
Oh, I cried so hard
and
for
he
that,
has
bro.
has the letter and like is ready to give it to her, and then like doesn't do it, and it's just
That
like
shattered me, dude.
yeah, it's just like, are you serious? Just give it to her, just fucking give it to her. Um, but of course,
Yeah,
like
man.
Wakanda Forever is like you know emotional in a much different way, and
Yeah.
before I close it out, I did want to bring up I love like the visuals were really good. I thought like the underwater city that Namor lived in was like
Oh
really
yeah.
depicted really well. It was really
Oh, it was
beautiful.
fantastic, dude. Yeah. That was one thing that I
Um,
forgot to mention. Yeah.
I also love finding out that so many of these people involved with the movie couldn't swim before they started. Ryan Ryan
I
Ryan
had no idea.
Ryan Coogler learned how to swim because he was like, if I'm
That's
gonna
insane.
he's like, if I'm gonna have actors going underwater, then I need to be under there with them.
Should probably
And
do it
then
too.
our boy Neymar, he didn't know how to swim either. And
Really?
Ryan Coogler
He
asked him, yeah,
did.
he asked him like, hey, do you know how to swim? And
Oh
he
my
said,
god.
apparently his response was like, well, I've never drowned. So then he went and
Oh.
he went and took swimming lessons like right afterwards, right after he found out he got the job.
That's cool. That gives
So
me hope
like,
to be ghostwriter then. So
yeah, there you
because
go.
I don't
Yeah,
know how
you
to
get
ride a motorcycle.
there you go. Anyone can be taught anything. Yeah, and then Angela
Yeah.
Bassett was talking about what it was like to like she was training with people that could hold their breath underwater for like 7-8 minutes, and then she was like,
Wow.
I would get to 3 or 4 and be
Yeah.
like, cool, that's good for me, right?
And that's a lot, dude. Like three, I was
Yeah.
like 3 or 4 minutes is impressive
Oh
alone.
yeah. Oh, and by the way, I do want to bring this up because like I read this today.
Uh-huh.
And of course, everyone listening, we already talked about a lot of spoilers, but I'll put a warning in here that we're talking about everything in the movie. The one thing that she did fight him on because she thought it was too much, but I think it ultimately works in the movie. I think it has to happen. She was a little bit gutted that her character dies, and
Yeah.
she was like, oh, they're not gonna like the audience is gonna be so mad because of all the loss that's already going on in the movie,
Yeah.
and she really fought against it, but like he was saying that like even though like Shuri lost her brother, she lost her son, like the queen had to go because Shuri had to take over everything in like a much bigger way. Like she had to like take like things had to that had to happen from a narrative standpoint. I kind of was gutted when she died. I mean, I kind of
Mhm.
my friends when they saw the trailer, they were like, I feel like they're gonna kill her off, and I was like, where are you getting that impression from?
I didn't even see that coming personally,
Yeah,
man. I was like
yeah,
thrown off too, man. I was like, whoa,
and
more
like
gut sacking tears right here, man.
and it was like how they did it, like like fucking drowns and like like yeah, it was just
Yeah, man.
but
It
yeah,
was unexpected, dude.
yeah, I
For
didn't
me at
expect it at
least.
all. I know I didn't at all, and
Yeah.
like she tried to convince him. She was like, oh well, they're gonna be so mad, but like I think she ultimately got it. And then he made the comments here, like we said earlier, he's like, it's the MCU. No one's ever really dead in the
Nobody's
MCU.
really gone.
You
Yeah.
know, like
No,
no
yeah.
one's ever
We'll
really
see here the
gone.
ancestral plane
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
exactly.
Like
Like,
some,
but like, I figure if you,
multiverse shit.
yeah, I figure if you're like a studio and like you have someone like Angela Bassett like on your
Uh-huh.
roster, you don't completely get rid of her.
Oh,
Like
of
you,
course not.
you give
Hell
you
no.
you create like you create a way for her to sneak back in.
Yeah.
Um, but
And
if they
yeah,
were gonna do this to her, like if they were gonna kill her off for the sake of the story, I'm glad that they gave her so much more to do compared to the first movie. I mean, I know
me too.
she was more of a supporting player in the first one, but like due to the necessity of like what happened in like the story and the script and stuff, she had to take on a bigger
Yeah, she
role.
was a really heavy hitter for this one for sure.
Yeah, I thought she did a really good job, and I also like Lupita Nyong'o too. I know like she kind of got
Yeah.
you know, we don't get reintroduced to her again until well into
Good, yeah, good chunk into the movie. Yeah.
but she also has like a fair amount of stuff to do. I couldn't because I didn't like a fool didn't watch
Hmm.
the first Black Panther again before seeing this. I just didn't have time to watch it, and I couldn't
Uh-huh.
remember how much screen time she had in that compared to what she had in this.
She had
I
more,
just
no?
I think she had more in the first one, right? Or did she have more in the
Yeah,
second one? Yeah,
I
yeah.
would definitely say she had more in the first one. Definitely.
Uh, but I also thought they utilized her pretty well too. I thought they utilized
Oh yeah.
everyone to the best of their abilities, and
Yeah.
and that whole moment at the end, the whole mid credit scene that we have with her and
No,
Shuri, and then like,
that was awesome.
well, one I want to give like total credit for them not having a mid credit scene that's like, oh, like we're setting what, well, here comes like Ant-Man and the
Hmm.
Wasp. Like, like don't do that
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
it wouldn't be
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be right at
Uh-huh.
all. But like I liked in its own way, kind of like this is kind of like the future of like what these movies could be, like what happens in like if you want to do more Black Panther movies, like what uh it sets up a really cool new direction, I think. All right, like for the standalone movies if they choose to do that. And I thought it was just like
Definitely.
I thought
Yeah.
it was like a really good. Well, it's so crazy too because it followed like there was that emotional gun punch of like seeing the sun, but then like the
Yeah.
whole like her burning the clothes and then the flashbacks and then fucking Rihanna song, which is like really good too.
Oh yeah. Oh
It
man,
was
the
like
soundtrack is great for this
yeah,
one.
yeah, it
Google it,
was like
man. I'm telling you.
yeah, it's a combination of like all that, like really that last 5 minutes of or so was like
Mhm.
so really just well done because you earn the catharsis that you get at the end of it.
Yeah.
Like you're at that point, you're on her level, you've dealt with this, you've been on this journey with her, and like you almost feel like you're doing it together, like letting
Yeah.
all that go together. And I thought that was just really smart to do it that way. I don't know if there was any other option. I'm glad they just were like, hey, this is like our self-contained story. Like our mid-credit scene is going to be about us and what this movie is,
Yeah.
and like and the characters in this movie. I'm glad I read ahead of time that there was only one. I didn't have to
Yeah.
like, wait around for
Yeah.
anything else after that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Being a
After
server at Alamo Draft House,
yeah,
people are always sitting in there waiting.
yeah. I mean, I saw it. I saw it at 8:45. We didn't get out till like almost 11:40, 45. So it was a long movie. So I'm glad I didn't sit through like the whole credits all the way to the
Mhm.
end, like expecting something
Yeah.
else to happen. Um, but yeah, it was like I thought like they handled all that so well, and like it was I also forgot to bring this up too. I thought like even in the beginning how they paid tribute to him with the whole like Marvel Studios logo, and it was just images of Chadwick
Yeah.
Boseman. I thought that was
In
really
silence. That was
in
great,
silence,
man.
and here's
Mhm.
if you're lucky enough to have like a collective movie going experience like this, the crowd that I saw it
Yeah.
with, um,
Dead silent.
dead silent when you needed to be.
Yep.
Like if dead silent
Yeah.
during that moment with the Marvel logo, dead silent when she like
Hmm.
burned the clothes at the end and the song played. There was no
Hmm.
like applause or anything like that. It was just everyone was kind of in the
Yeah.
moment. And now I've heard other people have
So
different
great.
experience with this. I was like on Twitter and they're like I'm jealous of everyone else's Wakanda Forever theater experiences. Mine was like no, mine was not that. Um, but yeah, it was really cool that everyone just kind of knew how to react. Uh,
Yeah. No,
so like
it was really special. being this one for sure was being special in a crowd of people that were
Yeah,
feeling the same
I
thing you
thought
were,
so
I
too.
guess. Yeah, everybody cheered, cried, sniffled at the same time. So
Yep.
it was a great one for sure.
It was, definitely was. So what would you, I mean, closing it up, like what would you want to see like moving? They asked Ryan Coogler like if he
Mhm.
would be willing to direct another one, and he basically was like, he didn't say no, but he was like, I need time away from it. I need to like once this press tour is over, I need to really
Yeah,
like, because he's been
very
with it for
understandable,
so
man.
long, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
reminds me in a different way, but it reminds me of like when John Watts decided not to do Fantastic Four, and everyone was
Mhm.
like, well, why? And I was like, well, he was immersed in like
Yeah.
he immersed in these three
I
giant
couldn't
Spider-Man movies.
imagine how
Like,
exhausting that could be, bro.
and by the way, you're going from like someone who's more of like a smaller filmmaker that's used to like smaller scale budgets, and like now he's making three big Marvel movies. So like I get if you're living with something, and especially in Ryan Coogler's case where there was also this emotional weight attached to it, like
Yeah.
it would be difficult to like talk about when you want to revisit it. But like, I mean, you're in the comics, like you probably even know me even more than me. Like, what would you kind of want to see moving forward? Like, at least in like
Um,
in another like Black Panther like story,
oof.
or where do you want these characters to kind of go?
Man, that's a really good question, and I particularly, I'm like I said, was a more of an X-Men
Right,
straight
right,
level hero, Daredevil character guy growing up. So I'm not too familiar or well rounded with Black Panther.
right,
But as far as what I know with the events that are coming, like Secret Invasion, which was one of my big events as a little
right,
kid, I have
right,
every issue, every issue, every crossover for Secret Invasion.
right, right.
So I'm really excited for that. But more particularly, how they're going to do Secret Wars, and that is
Yeah, that's
huge.
a huge story. I remember, I
That
mean,
is
reading that,
massive.
reading
Yeah.
that as a kid, even
Uh-huh.
as a kid, knowing how big that story was, uh,
Massive.
that's massive. And like the cool thing about it is across these like next two Avengers movies, especially Secret Wars, there's a lot of opportunity to like even utilize
Mhm.
some of these characters from like Black Panther and stuff like that.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
it's not a matter of like are we going to see them again, or more like when and
Mhm.
how we're going to see
More,
them
yeah,
again.
more a question of when and why. Yeah.
Why, yeah, and like, and I'm very excited to
Yeah.
kind of see where these characters
S-
end up in these bigger stories now that like
yeah.
now that we're going to be removed a bit from like mourning T'Challa, mourning Chadwick Boseman. Like, where do you take these characters now that
Right.
like the grief process is over, and like,
Mhm.
what do they kind of take on next? I mean, I think that aspect for those characters is what I want to see
Mhm.
coming up for them, and like kind of what
Yeah.
adventures you can take them on. But like you said, Secret Wars has a
And
lot of opportunity, man, to
yeah.
that's such a massive story, and like I just hope they get it right.
That
It's so huge.
yeah. Oh, I believe that will. And as far as what's set up for here, I want to see his son be part of maybe the Young Avengers because it's
Yeah, yeah,
obviously something that they're setting up.
right.
And then of course, I'm hyped as shit for the Thunderbolts, dude.
Yeah, that's gonna be that. Okay, so like that's Marvel's Suicide Squad, right? And like hopefully we
Oh
get that
yeah,
we get
they're a
that
team of
right.
wackos.
Yeah, and
Yeah, and
that cast is so good too. Like it's like all those people that you like loved in their like individual like kind of
yeah,
uh
I
yeah.
heard that that's not the full lineup. That apparently there's going to be more.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I did not know that. That's
So,
cool.
in the comics, so that's why I'm a little surprised with the movie lineup. I'm like, well, not most of this, especially Winter Soldier. He wasn't really a Thunderbolt. Um, but if we have
I kind
Deadpool
of
coming in and maybe the Punisher and we have Abomination, those are three
right.
Thunderbolts right there too.
I kind of think, and this is just me spitballing. I don't know for sure.
Uh-huh.
I kind of think including the Winter Soldier or Sebastian Stan. I feel like that had more to do with like either I don't know if he's like contractually obligated to appear more, but I think if they wanted him to appear more, they're like this is the best opportunity for him to appear more and like in another
Right.
project with them. Because I had a
Yeah.
friend that told me that too that he wasn't uh really a part of that, but like if they want to find
Right.
a way to utilize him in other projects, then that's fine. I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
And
I
like,
don't
and
mind
I
changing it up. At this point, yeah. Sorry.
no, no, you're good. No, yeah, you're good. I'm actually
I,
excited to see more of Florence Pugh as well. She'll be
Oh
awesome. Like
yeah. She's so great. Very charming.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, like that whole lineup is gonna be so much fun, I think.
Definitely, man.
Uh,
Definitely.
but yeah, we got through. I
Hell yeah.
we got through like I mean it's and for all this like build up from like I remember the first trailer for this came out during Comic-Con in San Diego over the summer
Yeah.
for Wakanda Forever. And I remember leading up to that, like so many of us were like, "Oh, we haven't seen any footage from it. Like, I hope it's good." And
Mhm.
then
Yeah, I remember that too.
that first trailer had so much like emotional weight attached to it. Like, it was much different than like the trailers we have gotten in the
Yes, I
past from like
remember
the
crying for
MCU.
the trailer. Yeah.
Yeah, and like you know what I liked about like in the trailers subsequent to that, even the TV spots, there wasn't a lot of plot specific stuff in it. It was just like selling it as like an event and
Yeah.
selling the emotion, but not really selling like what's going on here. And I thought that was like a really good direction to take it into.
I like that we never understood why Namor was out doing what he was doing
Right.
until really the movie came out.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm
Yeah.
glad that we got it. I'm glad that it turned out to be, in my eyes, a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
I'm still
absolutely.
I'm still going, I have to watch the first one again because I haven't watched it in a bit. But
Yeah.
I like the emotional kind of like stuff that goes on in movies like this that has more going on than
Mhm.
just I have a feeling I'm gonna still think this one is a little better than the first one, but like
That's
I'll
what I
like
was thinking too. Yeah.
I will revisit it and like on a future episode I'll bring it up again. But like as of now, I'm just gonna say from what I remember, I think this is a better film overall
Yeah. I'm with you
than
on
the
that one, dude.
than the first movie. And it's crazy, and like a lot of it is not because of what was initially planned, right? A lot of it was just necessity. Like life happened and they had to figure out how to soldier on and get this movie made. And I think a lot of people are responding positively to it. It got an A cinema score over the weekend. The audience score is
Hell yeah.
on Rotten Tomatoes is really good.
Sweet.
I think it'll play pretty well even throughout the whole holiday season, like even through like the end of the year. Uh,
Oh yeah.
It's kudos to them for making it and like getting it done, and they should be proud of like their work because I thought it was just really, really well done. And I imagine it was
Absolutely,
hard.
bro.
I imagine it was hard, but like they got through it and made something very special. And I
Yeah,
think
they
that
did it
like
well.
and I think that everyone that knows Chadwick Boseman or is like either worked with him or is related to him in some
Family.
capacity, or if they cross his
Mhm.
path, they should all be proud of like the movie because it is a very fitting tribute to
I-
him as well.
I would imagine he would be proud.
Yeah, I would imagine too. They did a
Yeah.
good job of like respecting him and all that. So
He was a real
Yeah.
class act of a human being, man. He was amazing.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Brandon, for hopping on
Thanks
with
so
me
much
and
for
talk.
having me, guys. Man,
It's-
it was
so-
fucking awesome, man.
Yeah, I mean, you're just like Donnie in a way because Donnie's very easy to like talk to.
Dude,
Uh,
I tell people Donnie's my Padawan, so I've taught Donnie a
so he
lot.
learned from the master. All right, you know what? I'm gonna use that part of this clip just to like promote it for like the weekend because we try.
He is the Obi-Wan to my Qui-Gon. So I'm his Qui-Gon to the Obi-Wan, I suppose. I
Yeah.
would like to think.
Yeah, we try to isolate some of the clips to promote the episode throughout the week. I just think I might
That's
isolate
there,
that one
dude.
as one of them. But yeah, he's really cool and he's like very helpful and
Oh,
like
Donnie's great, man.
very
yeah, he's been telling
knowledgeable
me
about-
about you a lot too. So
yeah, he's very knowledgeable of, like all genres too. It's like it's
Yeah.
easy to have him on with like
oh yeah,
any type of movie that we're talking about and like
oh
uh,
yeah.
and like if we're ever looking for anyone, like don't be afraid to reach out or I'll reach out to you. Like
Yeah, I wanted to be part of the RoboCop one you guys did, but I was working at the time.
Oh yeah, he did mention you before. Yeah, that was fun. That was actually a fun one too.
yeah.
But yeah,
Hell
we have
yeah.
some
No,
we have
I'm-
some big anniversary ones coming up, and
Very cool. Well, count me in.
and-
Anytime you need me, man, I'll love to help out.
yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And
Heck yeah.
as always, you can listen to Back to the Blockbuster across all of our various podcast platforms, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Good Pods has also been really good for a lot of independent podcasters. our anniversary episode went back into the top 10 for film reviews on their platform, so that was fun. And
Yes.
so yeah, thank you all for listening. And always, like, if you have time, I know it can be a little bit of a, actually, you know what, it's not really a nuisance. Like, it's so easy to rate and review. Like, even if you don't want to
It's
write,
easy.
if you don't want to write a review,
all you're doing
like,
is complaining.
yeah, even if you don't want to write a
or praising.
or praising. If you don't want to write a review, just smash down, hopefully 5 stars. But if you feel like it's less than that, try to explain yourself, and then so we can work on things that need fixing.
Use your words.
Yeah, use your words. And then, like I said at the top, we're gonna start recording our spin-off show on December 5th, and that will be more of like a deep dive into like individual movies that our co-host Owen will be picking every other week. So that's gonna be more fun. All of our movie-centric episodes tend to do better than like focusing on like, oh, like what drama is going on in the industry. So we're gonna try to do more of the movie-centric stuff in the future. So that's what that show is all about. So
Very
get ready
cool.
for that. You guys will be listening to this episode on Thursday, and I will have you. If there's anything that you want to send me or anything that you want people to check out, Brandon, I can link it on the description of the episode too.
Some
Or
shameless plugging here.
yes, shamelessly, you can shamelessly plug away. That's the whole point of it.
Just a shout out. Just a shout out, I guess, to Donnie. Today's my brother's birthday too. Shout out to my brother Max. As we
Happy
record
birthday.
this. And this plug, I guess, of course, you could check us out. It's my best friend. He's the brains behind everything. I'm just the big mouth. Skyler Cabrion. You could find me, find us on Truman Pictures, TRUMAN Pictures. And our podcast is the Video Vortex. We'll be bringing that back here pretty soon.
Nice.
And Gyro Studios is another partner of us. A lot of our work is on there. If you want to watch some goofy videos, short films, that's where we're at.
Very cool.
Thanks so much for having me, man. This was
No
freaking awesome.
No problem. And I will have you.
Let me
send
know if you ever need any comic suggestions.
Oh yeah, I probably, yeah, I definitely, now I know who to reach out to. Now I definitely know who to reach out to. Definitely know. And like I said, like
I'm the guy for that.
He'll send me some of this stuff too, so we can link it on the description of this episode, so you guys can check it out.
Yeah.
And thank you so
sure.
much for coming on.
Oh,
and
yeah.
this was awesome. I love speaking with fellow nerds, and I feel like you're as big as nerd as the rest of us, and I mean that in the best way possible.
Oh, I am.
So
I take it in the best way possible.
Yeah. So we would definitely be having you on again in the future, brother. So thank you so much.
I'll be back.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, man. You have a good one.
You too. Peace out, guys.